Hey all, welcome to Share Trek. This is Raj here. Friends, today I'm going to be talking to Jeff Galvin. I'm pretty excited. The meeting is starting at 3 o'clock. In a very short while, I'll be with Jeff, and you're going to watch the interview in the next few minutes. Let's get started. Hey all, welcome to Share Trek. We have the great Jeff Galvin with us today, and he has once again taken some time off this Friday to talk to us. So, welcome, Jeff.
Oh, my pleasure to be back again, Raj. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. In our last meeting, Jeff, you had mentioned about the progress with Addimmune. How is the transition going? Has AGT 103-T been totally transitioned into Addimmune?
Yeah, so it's all unofficial now because we have to actually create another vessel for the remainder of our assets in other areas and do a formal division. But what we've been doing since we made the announcement is focusing in almost all of our resources on Addimmune. And what we do is we say that we call the HIV project Addimmune so that people aren't confused. The company is still American Gene Technologies, but the intention is still to go ahead and split those into two companies. And the split is so well established; it's all written down and papered. And it's just a matter of going down it and checking all the boxes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wish you the very best for that, Jeff, because once that happens, I think you'll have even more clarity of how your days are going to be organized and you can be more effective on that. So that said, I wanted to talk to you about the Phase 1B launch on behalf of the channel. I
Mhm.
think it happened in January this year. I recall our previous conversation about the study AGT 168. I think you were trying to do some study around when to do the ATI for the best results for the next phase. So
Yeah.
could you please share your findings from the study and discuss your team's approach to determining the timing of the ATI for the next phase?
Yeah, so we learned a lot from the phase 1A and also the analytic treatment interruption because essentially, even though it's a small data set, there's a lot of what I call 100% in it. So it was 100% of the people had zero serious adverse events. So that's a very good safety readout. 100% of the patients got engraftment, persistence, and durability of the cells. So we tracked that was the secondary endpoint from the phase 1. And then when we did the ATI, we saw an immune response in 100% of the patients. So this was unusual because you would expect that when you take somebody who is living with HIV off of their antiretrovirals, their CD4 count would start to decline and
Right,
their CD8s would not react.
right.
And that is because the CD4s are the generals of the immune
Yes,
army. They identify the pathogen and then they call out the Air Force, the CD8s, the cytotoxic T cells, to bomb the viral factories.
yes,
So normally when you do a withdrawal and people don't have an immune response, they start losing CD4s and they don't gain any CD8s, even though the virus is going up. Well, we got the exact opposite in 6 out of 6 patients that went off their antiretrovirals. So again, 100% got what looked like an immune reaction. Flat CD4s, or roughly flat. They were stable. It looked like they were surviving the HIV attack from the viral reservoir. And then the CD8s were going up in response to the virus.
yes.
So that was another really exciting finding. But it didn't blunt the peak of the viremia all that well, which also makes sense when you think about it, right? Because what happens the first time your immune system sees a virus that it hasn't seen in a long, long time, right? It
Right.
takes a while to ramp up against it. And so the virus usually gets ahead, and then the immune system has to catch up. But in HIV, you don't want to let that happen for too long. You don't want to get these really high viremias for
Right.
too long. So when it hit peak, we immediately put them on antiretrovirals again, and people had peaks between about 200,000 particles per ml and 600,000 particles per ml. That those levels could actually even increase the viral reservoir. So put a pin in that, but we don't want that to happen in the next study. But in any case, the first viral peak was kind of almost normal. But then, of course, the exposure to the virus is almost like a vaccination. So what
Right.
happens after you've had a vaccination? You've got essentially the cells are in activated effector state. So
Yes.
they're ready for the pathogen now. Well, sure enough, the 4 people that volunteered for a second withdrawal got a significant viral suppression, an average of 1.3 logs. So we had one that was like a 40x reduction in viremia. We had another one 37x, and the other one was like 25 and 11x. So these were all greater than a log, but some of them, really up there in terms of viral suppression. So why is that exciting? Well, it's exciting because the infusions are on day 0, but when we took them off of their antiretrovirals was up to 490 days after that initial infusion.
Right.
And these cells circulating in the body, unstimulated, the immune system will what's called normalize them. It naturally brings them down to
Yeah.
lower numbers.
It will
So
cull them, and probably some of your AGT 103 cells would also have got culled because they're not being used.
exactly. That's exactly what happens, is that it'll bring down the total number. Now, most of the CD4 cells in the body at that point that are HIV specific were our cells with our transgene. But yes, the body doesn't know the difference. So it's going to lower the whole quantity. But we would assume we have sort of memory levels at
Yes.
that point of those cells. And it should take time for them to react and, sort of grow up again. We didn't know after 490 days whether we would get any immune reaction. So it was
Right.
very exciting to get such a consistent immune reaction across all the patients, even though some of them had been still on antiretrovirals and these cells in their body unstimulated and declining for over a year. But so to get a 40x reduction in viremia is very, very exciting, when it's that far after the infusion. So what do? You just go ahead and do the ATI in the first 30 days. Okay, because in the first 30 days, what we saw is that the number of cells actually goes up and then comes back down to about the same number as we infused.
Right.
And we don't know why they went up. It could be cytokines that are in the product that are left over from the manufacturing process, or it could be they were seeing virus for the first
Right.
time they got in the body. So we don't know why they amped up, but we do know there was this 30-day, sort of bolus of activity. So
Right.
we're going to do 3 groups of 8 patients each. We're going to withdraw one on day 0, one on day 14, and one on day 28. So we're getting immediate peak and then the sort of resting state.
Nice.
Now, the other thing that we learned from the withdrawal is that you need to make sure that they're activated. So we're going to do an auto vaccination again. We're going to expose them to virus and then stop that exposure. But this time, we're not going to let them go all the way up to, 600,000 particles per ml or 200,000 particles per ml. We're going to cut it off at 20,000 particles per ml.
Right.
And we won't let them go longer than 8 weeks. So if they have some viremia, but it doesn't exceed 20,000, we'll let them go for 8 weeks. Or if it hits 20,000, we'll put them back on antiretrovirals. Then we start a clock of 28 days.
Right.
28 days between when we put them back on antiretrovirals, so the auto vaccination's done, and when we take them off a second time. That optimizes a normal vaccination protocol. That's generally what you want, is between the vaccine and when you get exposed to the virus, about a month is optimum. So what we're hoping to see is that we could improve on that therapeutic response that we saw in the phase 1A.
Right.
And you wouldn't have to improve on it much, okay? Because first of all, even the levels that we brought it down to, if we can show that we can do that consistently in the next study and that we have statistical power behind that data,
Right.
to me, it looks like we have a drug that would still be a big benefit to people that are living with HIV. And the reason would be that you could take this one and done therapy, your immune system would control the virus at levels that are roughly around long-term non-progressor levels,
Right.
which means that you don't actually need antiretrovirals to prevent AIDS. You just need a little bit of some sort of suppressive therapy to get it down to 0 so that people aren't contagious, right?
It will
Now
be a
that
natural
therapy,
balance.
yeah,
As viremia goes up, CD4 goes up and pushes it down. As it
right.
goes down, the body removes the CD4 and the viremia comes up. And there's a stasis level, which you expect to be in a level that it doesn't progress to AIDS and it doesn't make them infectious. So that's where you want it to settle down. So that's the
Right.
calibration you
That's where
might be doing.
what we want to do is get it all the way down to something like less than 200 particles per ml. So we were in the 5 to 10,000 range. We still need to go a couple log, right?
Right.
But we already brought it down. We don't know how much from what they would have been without any therapy, but
Right.
we know from our first withdrawal to our second withdrawal, we saw like 1.5 log difference. So that's pretty good.
Pretty good.
And so now, if we optimize the protocol so that they have a massive number of these generals in there that are
Right.
able to steer a robust CD8 response, and
Yes.
possibly they may be, we don't know this from the first study, but they may be making a B cell antibody response as well.
Right.
So there is a lot of evidence out there that getting T cell immunity to HIV can bring it under control. So we need to see how well we can get it down there. But even at the levels we got it to in the phase 1A, so even if the therapeutic levels don't improve, that is a level where if somebody were to take that therapy, they could have a much potentially longer lasting ART therapy. So
Right.
imagine a Cabenuva that
Right.
lasts for 6 months instead of 2 months.
Right.
Or imagine another form of suppressive therapy like a lenacapavir,
Right.
which can be given in an injectable format that and lasts up to 6 months,
Yes.
right? And I think that would be a great improvement for people that are living with HIV. That's not the goal. The goal is to keep going. And we
Right.
haven't seen anything yet that says we can't get all the way to functional cure. One and done, and that the natural immune system could suppress it at levels where it's non-contagious, so under 200 particles per ml. We hope to get it down below 20 particles per
Right.
ml. And historically, in functional cures, that has happened. Even a gene therapy or a cell therapy experiment from Sangamo yielded one person who has been durably in remission for over a decade now.
Right.
So able to suppress it down at levels where no medication is necessary. And that person only was getting a treatment that was good against R5 viruses. Ours should be good against X4 tropic viruses as well. So a
Right.
broader solution. So we'll see. Like that's the thing about science. You don't know it until you show it,
Exactly.
right? But I think what we've shown so far is very encouraging. And we have some very simple things that we can do, and we can start the phase 1B under the same IND with a petition to the FDA for these protocol changes,
Right.
combine the ATI into the clinical study so that we don't have to wait until that study's done before we withdraw people from antiretrovirals. We'll specify it as part of the protocol. And we hope to be measuring, better responses, and then based on that, we will, continue our journey towards creating a drug that either greatly improves HIV treatment and or potentially is a one and done cure. Now,
Right.
I think people listening to this podcast may think, "Oh, are you giving up on, functional cure?" Not at all.
Not at all. Yeah.
Promise you that. We have 4 other technologies on the bench that can be added to this product that should increase potency. So we have 5 shots on goal here. I actually believe personally that this one may be good enough on its own to bring the functional cure under an optimized
Right.
treatment protocol. But again, we have to see what we get, and then we're going to have to think about our next steps. One thing would be if we came up with something that was a valuable, competitive, sort of strategic asset in the HIV treatment market that gave some relief to people by making the treatments more convenient, longer lasting, or less toxic. So less doctor's visits,
Right.
less, liver, kidney, heart disease, and cancer, things like that. Some really serious side effects that people deal with. That would be a contribution, but it would also be something that might be able to be commercialized. And then,
Right.
of course, that money would just
Right.
go straight back into our goal
Research.
of getting to a one and done cure.
Yeah, I can visualize that, Jeff. May I just summarize very briefly my understanding? I think you
Sure.
took the initial patients who were in phase one, you called them back, and then you did the ATI study. And because you called them back after a long time,
Mhm.
they had just the memory cells potentially of the AGT 103 you had given them. but still they
Mhm.
performed pretty well. And
Yeah.
now your approach is that you have seen 2 points where ATI can be done. And one is, you take them out of ATI and then you give them AGT 103 when they're at the peak. And then the other one is, I just a bit
Well, it's a
confused.
little bit different. No, we give them AGT 103T on day zero,
Okay,
right? So we leukapheresis them, we produce the product, and then when we reinfuse it, we call that day zero.
day zero.
And in the body, what we see is the cells that we just put in, they seem to react and go up.
Yes,
They increase their own numbers. Now, this is one of the nice things about CD4 cells is that they can clone themselves under
yes,
viral pressure, or in the case of our production, under cytokine stimulation.
right,
Okay, so we don't know why they amped up, but what we saw was at day zero, we were measuring about the number of cells that we expected. But then at day 14, we were measuring, up to 10 times as many,
right.
right? So that's interesting. And so what we're doing is not about when we treat them with AGT 103T, it's about when we stop their
Got
antiretroviral.
it. Got
See?
it. Got it. So while you have infused them, they are still on ATI. They are still on ART. Day
Right.
zero, they are still
Yep.
on ART. You go to day 30. That's when you peak. That's when you can put them on ATI. And the
Hmm.
next batch, you're going to put them on ATI when it plateaus down.
Hmm.
And there are the two batches that you're going to try. That's my understanding.
Actually, three. We're going to
Three.
try day zero. We're going to say
Okay.
zero time between infusion. We're
Okay.
just going to tell them, go home, no more antiretrovirals.
Yeah.
Come in weekly for virus
Yeah.
measurements.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you were right about the peak, but
Yeah.
it's at 14 days.
14 days. Yeah.
Yeah, and think about this: when you get sick with the flu, what happens, right? You
Right.
know, your cells go up for about two
Yes.
weeks, and then
Yes.
they come down for about 2 weeks. I think
Right.
that's what's going on with these cells as well.
Yes.
So at day 14, we think, okay, these things are at their peak quantity. That's probably another good time to start the first ATI.
Right.
And then at day 28, we saw that the level of them is about the same as day zero.
Right.
So that was
Very
the
nice.
the design of the phase 1B. Yeah.
It's looking very encouraging, Jeff, actually. And also the way you mentioned, right? I keep on telling my audience that when we look at diseases like sickle cell disease or HIV, these are all diseases that need heavy investment, and there is no guarantee that the clinical trial will be successful. So we have
Mhm.
to balance all the stakeholders' requirements to be participants in this venture.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think the way you are looking at it is, it's the most logical way. We try our best to give you the 100% on the first attempt. But
Hmm.
if it is short of 100%, hey, it's still better than what you have elsewhere because it's going to be way better than once in 6 months.
Right.
And then we got add-on modules like version 2 of the software or version 3 of the
Right.
software or
Yeah.
plugins. We're going to put more technology into it and improve it further. And the way I
Yeah.
look at this, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, is that regardless of whatever happens, even if you got once and done, that's great.
Yeah.
Everybody's successful.
Oh yeah.
But if you have a tiered approach where the first initiative gives a great deal of relief, but it's not once and done, and then you have
Hmm.
a plugin coming in, then that still provides a lot of price points at which various people will be able to enter and get treatment. And
Hmm.
at the same time, it gives you revenue to continue your research to come up with the ultimate cure.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely right. The goal of the company is to get a sustainable path
yeah.
to our, sort of long-term aspiration,
Yes.
right? And we've been working for a while now. When you think about it, we, really dove into HIV in earnest around 2016. So
Right.
we're coming up on 8 years now. Our IND was filed in 2019. We started our clinical trial in 2020. Then we had COVID hit. You never know what happens, right?
Yes.
The COVID hit, and so for 3 years it was difficult doing the clinical trials, but we finished them.
Right.
And now I don't know whether I've already mentioned this on a previous podcast with you, but we have an article online that shows the results from the analytic treatment interruption. So there's a lot of details available for anybody that wants to read them. It's on a preprint server called medRxiv, which is MEDRXIV. And so if you search Google for medRxiv
Yeah.
and AGT 103T, you'll actually see a preprint article that is
Right.
under peer review right now. So you can read all about the results we got in this withdrawal study, and it's very encouraging that we're on track.
Right. So, Jeff, if we were to look at where we are proceeding, when do you think phase 1B FDA approval or FDA go ahead or something like that will get done? Are you already there, or are you waiting for FDA to formally say, okay, get started, record the details, give it to us? Where
Yeah.
is it like at this point of time?
So the FDA has accepted the phase one data. They haven't pushed back on it. That's sort of a tacit acceptance because
Yes.
the FDA doesn't generally tell you it's okay to go forward. They generally say it's that they're not going to stop you from going forward, right? That's sort of like a safety release that they're
Right.
giving you to go and do it. So it's a interesting, sort of way that you interact with the FDA. We found them to be, quite collaborative, and they seem very interested in a functional cure and even just new, better ways to treat HIV. So the discussions with them about the phase 1B, we haven't gotten any pushback. They've looked at our CMC data from the first study. They asked a few questions, but they haven't asked anything in a while. And I think they're waiting for us to come back to them and announce the start, right? And
Right.
then they have 30 days to tell us no,
Right.
right? So I don't know how that will work out. But the issue in terms of doing that, because we have everything that we need to do it, is just money.
Right.
And 2023, you may have heard, was a very bad year in biotech.
Yes.
And I'm pleased to tell everybody that's listening that we survived that
Yeah.
period. We actually raised a record amount of money, but unfortunately, we spent a record amount of money on attempting to go into the public market. So we're
Right.
in the process of creating a public entity and listing it on either the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. And that's a very expensive process,
Right.
and that hasn't completed yet. So, and I think part of that is because biotech was so depressed.
Right.
But the good news is it looks like the wind is at our back again. Biotech is up. The biotech index, gene and cell therapy is hot, hot, hot. Our data looks really good. And we managed to survive when a lot of biotech companies
Yeah.
actually laid off tens of thousands of employees or shut
True.
down. So
Yeah.
that's remarkable. And now we're kind of rebuilding our cash reserves, but it does look like a lot of investors have returned. So they were tight in 2023, and now we're seeing a real uptick in interest in taking equity investments in our company.
Right.
And so, we just need to accrue enough and then
Exactly.
pull the lever on the phase 1B. So it should
I
be
guess
soon.
this
Yeah.
is the regular flow for most of the startup genomic companies because it's an expenditure heavy industry. And one of the things I try to tell my audience, both in the genomic investment channel as well as in the HIV channel, which I
Mm.
think generally in media, not much education is being done, is the balancing of the various stakeholders' interests in order to come up with a therapy. Because
Yeah.
the risk takers are the people who are putting the capital out there. The general
Right.
feeling is that pharma companies are all villains and they are out to take the last dime from your pocket and all that. But people, it's very popular opinion to float on the surface, but they dig down deep inside, then they will see how difficult it is to raise the funding and put it into a venture where success is not guaranteed, and it's a
Yeah.
lot of hard work. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when you come up with a therapy or something, there's a chance the government might say, okay, you can't charge more than this, or you can't charge more than that, or your patent
Yeah.
expires this soon. So
Yeah.
I try to educate the audience on both the side, investment side as well as on the HIV patient side, but it's a lone voice. But I hope there's more
Ah,
people talking about that.
yeah, well, I got to say that you're exactly on target in terms
Mm.
of all the challenges that face
Yeah.
us. A lot of the challenges are just dealing with, the fact that we're a capitalist society,
Yes.
right? It's we're not we can't just go to the government and say we got a great idea. They're not going to fund us start to finish, and we
Yeah.
can't go to Wall Street for sure
Mm.
and tell them, oh, we got a great idea,
Yeah.
and we can't go to the pharma companies either
Right.
because they're all investing their cash to make cash,
Right.
right? They're doing it strategically because the mandate at a public company or on Wall Street is that they have to turn their existing cash into profits.
Exactly. It's the terms
And
of
so
engagement.
yeah, so I think that we have something that looks very, very likely to be something that can make these investors a profit. And I think that, a lot of them were just shy in 2022 and 2023. But like I said, the risk capital seems to be returning to biotech. So that's
Yes.
a positive factor. So keep your fingers crossed that we
Yeah.
raise enough money in the next few months to, put pedal to metal to go full speed
Right.
on phase 1B. And so far, we still think that we can get to an interim readout in the second half of 2025. And that will be telling. That will
Yeah.
give us the statistical information we need for the current therapeutic levels or show that we're able to push these levels beyond what we saw in the phase 1A, maybe even to a one and done cure.
Yeah, I think once your data hits the market, right, and the interest rates start going down, which probably might happen after June, I
Mhm.
think that people will start coming in to look for where to put the money so that they can get the return, and you'd probably be like a goalkeeper waiting to catch it. So I'm hoping that
I
happens to
like
you very
I
quickly.
like that idea. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we definitely are seeing it.
Yeah,
The fundraising has already ticked up for us,
right,
and really the only thing that we can measure right now is our pipeline. So
right,
the pipeline went up by a factor of about six from December.
right.
So that's good.
That's
Yeah.
very nice, very heartening to hear. And Jeff, after hearing all that you have explained to me, my next question, I think, is half unwarranted, and the other half probably you could answer. My question was going to be, how long do you expect phase 1B to last? So I'm thinking that that question probably you
Oh
can't
no, I think it's a
answer.
good question. I can't tell you a definitive time frame, but
Yeah.
as I said, we believe we'll have an interim readout where
Okay.
50% of the patients have been treated.
Right.
We may not have all the data from them, but that around the second half of 2025. So maybe a
Right.
year, a little bit more than a year from now. Um, the um, the end of the phase 1B is probably more like the mid 2026.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that we wouldn't be able to get enough data before that to potentially rotate into a pivotal phase 2,
Okay.
right? So there may be ways to accelerate this if we can show compelling data to the FDA that's consistent with the safety that we've shown so far, but that shows consistency to some therapeutic level that is clearly valuable to people that are living with HIV.
Right. Because the other part I was going to ask was, could that be a registrational study? You already answered that by saying potentially phase two, and phase two might end up being a registrational study.
That is
So that's the
possible.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh,
You
Yeah.
just you don't know until you go in there and you have the discussions. But
Right.
this has happened, let's say, frequently with gene and cell therapies. So
Yes.
it wouldn't be unprecedented, certainly, to get a registrational phase 2.
And also
Now, it could
those,
be a limited license, right? It could be
yeah,
for a narrower group of
exactly.
people. Yeah.
Exactly. We have seen FDA doing that limited conditional license, and for a particular purpose, like you're saying once and done. I hope it happens once and done. But
Yeah.
you're going to get results within 14 days and 30 days. and you're going to see durability. Even if you want to see at the end of 6 months, you have still
Right.
crossed the hurdle of an existing therapy that can
Yeah.
give a once in 6 months dosing. So once
Yeah.
you cross that, I guess you are a new therapy which is available, and then it's up to you whether you want to do that while you're continuing your clinical trials,
Yeah.
or you want to wait until everything happens. So
Yeah. Well, I think it makes sense to do both things in
yeah.
parallel.
Yeah,
So,
because funding can come in and you can reinvest it into
right.
your research.
Yeah, and I think anything that we show that's positive will increase funding. I mean,
Yes.
everything's related, right?
Yeah,
The whole history of the company
yeah,
is, raise some money, show something, go
yes,
out there and say, "Hey, we did it," raise some more money, show something more,
yes.
right? And this flywheel effect,
The
right? That
virtuous cycle of
virtuous
yeah,
cycle,
yeah,
yeah, has gotten us all the way up to this point. Yeah.
yeah. So, Jeff, I have been thinking that based on all our discussions, of course, we have a slight delay that has happened here because of the capital related issues.
Hmm.
We were looking at around the end of 2027 potentially, when we
Hmm.
could probably be in a registrational situation or getting
Hmm.
it monetized and into the market,
Hmm.
if all goes well. My sense after hearing from you is that we are still in the same ballpark. Do you agree to that?
Yeah, you heard me
Yeah,
correctly. I don't think we've
yeah,
blown that date yet.
yeah,
We the uh, I think there was a little bit of headroom in our original estimates, and we may have eaten up a little bit of that
yeah,
extra time. Also, there may be, sort of other things that could come along and benefit it. 2 years is a long time.
right,
Anyway, so if you think about this, when in early 2026, a lot will have happened. We will have seen what this is capable of doing. We will have been able to see the consistency of it. And we will have had those discussions with the FDA about the specifics of
right,
what we need to do to get into a registrational study. And we may have started that registrational study
right,
already. So it's all about defining endpoints, and that's all contingent on what we see over the next year.
right.
But I agree with you. It is still, it's an optimistic time frame, and it always was, but it is still possible that
Still
we could
viable.
see
Yeah,
something in late 2027. Yeah.
right. Yeah, and we now have a global audience, and our videos have subtitles in 10 popular languages. And many of them are great fans of yours, Jeff. And I had shared with you in the beginning of the record all their comments and best wishes to you. So if you would like to say anything to them, this would be great.
Oh, sure. Well, I really appreciate everybody's kind words and encouraging comments, and that clearly everybody is sort of understands our passion for getting there, but also understands that it's complicated. It takes time. It's not a easy journey. Otherwise, it would have been done by somebody else a long time ago.
Yes.
But we are committed, and it seems like people understand that message that we're a company really that if we don't improve life for people living with HIV, then we as a company will not be able to survive. And
Right.
so we really are all on one team together. And when I was reading some of the comments, I really got that from folks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your prayers, your wishes, your kind words, your encouragement. And we will continue to do the absolute best that we can to get to our aspirational goal, our goal of finding a cure for HIV so that, people that are living with HIV will never have to think about HIV again. We genuinely believe it's possible, and we think we're on track.
Yeah.
And so be patient and stick with us. And thanks again for doing that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeff. And the audience generally, they have a lot of hopes from AGT, and they are very upbeat about it. So they will be very happy to see this video and the fact that I have passed on their best wishes to you. That will make them happy. So we have covered a good deal on the clinical trials. And as you know, now we have two separate channels. One is the global HIV channel, and the other is the original investment channel. So the video is going on both sides. Would
Uh-huh.
you like to have anything that you want to say? I mean, do you have anything you want to say to our investor audience about Addimmune or AGT or anything?
Sure. Yeah, so this is public information at this
Yeah,
point, but we are raising a $50 million convertible note with a 3x liquidation preference. So, if there are folks on your investment channel that are
yeah,
accredited investors, maybe this is an opportunity for them. We're not allowed to do general solicitation. So this is not a solicitation.
right,
I'm just mentioning factually that if you go to the SEC Edgar website and you look us up, Addimmune or American Gene Technologies, or even just look under the ticker symbol VCXB, which is the company that we're working on merging with, this
right.
SPAC company. You'll see our S4 filed. You'll see a lot of details about what we're doing right now, and go to our website. There's more information. Contact us if you happen to be, the type of investor that's allowed to consider
Right.
private investments. This is still a private investment. We're not out on the stock market yet. But that's how we've been funding the company, and we'll continue to do that until we do become a public company,
Yeah.
hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, I wish you the very best, Jeff. And our audience would definitely like to know about this. We are keeping track of companies like yours, which are likely to get into the stock market and catch you guys very young, because these are the opportunities of the future from an investment perspective. And on the way, we got a whole lot of audience who are looking at it from the disease perspective. So for them
Mhm.
also, the information you're giving is absolutely important. So that's where I kind of get a holistic approach. And looking at you, Jeff, you're trying to balance everything. You see the humanity suffering from HIV, and you want to help them out. On the other
Mhm.
hand, there are material constraints that you have to overcome, and
Mhm.
it's a difficult balance. I really appreciate how you have been pushing it for the last almost a decade on your own, and now you got a few allies. The interest rate environment is really difficult for many companies. We can see everyone is hurting. So I hope that by June or July, the Fed starts relaxing the interest rates and things come back, animal spirits come back into the market. And
Mhm.
we'd like to see Addimmune going public, and would like to see that you get all the money that you need in order to do a full-fledged phase 1B, phase 2, and get into registration.
Well, thanks, Raj. Yeah, there's a lot of challenges,
Yeah.
but that's no different than the last 10 years. There'll be, there's challenges this year with, like, as you said, interest rates, but then there's other things, other forces that are providing some lift under the company
Yes.
because the BTI, the index is up, the number of IPOs is up, the amount of M&A is up. There's a lot of cash on the sidelines. There's expiring patents out there,
Yes.
so patent cliffs and pharma companies seem to be coming more to the fore. We're actually reaching out to all the pharma companies now in the treatment market
Right.
because we could see maybe some value in a collaboration now where
Yes.
they could see some benefit that would give them a competitive advantage within the HIV space.
Yes.
Or even give them something that would extend the proprietary nature
Right.
of their treatments. If they can make a less toxic treatment using some of our technology,
Yeah.
right? All right, that is a good way to battle back generics, which I
Right.
think could be a threat to their revenues. So this is the 3D chess game that business people must play. It's not
Yes.
just a build a better mousetrap thing. You have to not just cure HIV, but you got to patent the heck out of it. We've got
Yes.
17 patents on this.
Right.
So, and I think the earliest one expires in 2036. So we got a
Right.
lot of time on this.
You have a
That's
runway.
valuable. Yeah. And then
And
you have to bring in enough money. You have to be able to sort of navigate that balancing act of moving the project forward. We got to figure out what the best funding sources are. You got to talk to potential partners. You got to, you know, there's
yeah.
so many different things that have to be balanced, as you said. But I think a lot of the factors improved greatly from 2023 to 2024.
Yes, it's
The
still
early part of
improving.
this year was
Yeah,
very encouraging, and I'm
yeah,
finally seeing some optimism for the
right.
first time in a long time from Wall Street. I've
Yeah,
always remained optimistic, but now I'm seeing
yeah.
institutional investors more optimistic about the gene and cell therapy industry in general, and this project specifically.
Yeah, and it should work out. And we generally focus on AGT 103-T. But Jeff, you have other assets also, phenylketonuria and other
Mhm.
assets on which you guys are working. So you got to make sure that those things also stay viable. So it's
Mhm.
commendable. So Jeff, I think we have had a extensive discussion about all the things that you could tell us about AGT 103 as well as Addimmune. So thank you very much for coming back to us again and keeping us in the loop. When we were a very tiny channel, you recognized us and you gave us support, and we have now grown huge. Combined audience of the both the channels is around 23 or 24,000. We have
Wow.
around 13 plus K in the investment side and 10,500 plus in the global HIV side. So we have grown a lot,
Terrific.
and thanks a lot to your support, Jeff, because many people come to the channel also to see what you have to say because they get an opportunity to hear from you the progress of AGT 103. So thank you very much for that, and I wish you the very best.
Yeah, well, thanks, Raj, and I wish you continued growth in both your
Thank you.
channels. And I thank you for checking in with me, and very happy to be here. And I hope I'll see you again soon.
Thanks a lot. Well, friends, that was my interview with Jeff Galvin, and it was very informative. I hope you guys liked it. I also made sure that I passed on your best wishes from the comment session, and Jeff had a look at all of that, and he was really thankful and happy, and you heard him in his own words. So, with that, my friends, I'd like to bring this video to an end. I'll catch up with you again in the next video. Bye for now.